What will your storyline be in 2018 now that the holiday rush is over? LegalZoom can help you make this a memorable year before all the distractions take hold. Make this the year you finally get serious about launching and running your business. Rest a little easier knowing your family's future is squared away with the right estate plan. LegalZoom has been helping people like you take care of their dreams and responsibilities for more than 16 years. They're not a law firm, but they have the resources to keep you on the right path, including advice from their network of independent attorneys, all at your fingertips. Whether you want to take your business to the next level or take control of your family's future with an estate plan, LegalZoom plugs right into your life so you can take care of the things that matter most. Get off to a strong start in 2018 at LegalZoom.com today and get special savings when you enter Golic in the promo box at checkout. LegalZoom, where life meets legal.
Hello, I'd like to deposit this to checking.
Fate is a fickle master.
What?
The future is uncertain.
Okay, and what's my account balance?
The horizon is cloudy. I see a long, treacherous voyage filled with great peril.
Look, can I just get a deposit slip or something?
A fortune bank teller. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I see a yellow-eyed serpent and a low APR.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Good Tuesday morning, everybody, and it is indeed a sweet home Alabama for the Crimson Tide. Welcome into Golic and Wingo. Glad you are here with us on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Trey Wingo, Mike Golic here. Junior will join us in a little bit next hour from Georgia. He couldn't pull himself away from the game, and Mike, my God, what an unbelievable finish to the college football season.
Listen, what do you say? I mean, the last few. I mean, a couple of years ago, you know, the high-scoring 45-40 Alabama win over Clemson last year, the last second 35-31 Clemson win over Alabama, and here an overtime game. How about Georgia? 2 games in a row. The Rose Bowl going double overtime here, having to go to overtime. In a game, I mean, listen, there's so much to dissect and talk about here of different areas to keep it all kind of, you know, in line. Let's give Georgia credit from the beginning. You know, it's a 60-minute game for a reason, but they were controlling this game. I mean, this was their game. They were in control, but they weren't really pulling away score-wise to the point where you're like, you know, Alabama is in real trouble here. You still thought, okay, they're controlling that Alabama offense isn't really getting untracked at all. It can't get anything going, but they're still only a play or two away from being back in this game. I have to admit, in the third quarter, when I saw Georgia go up 20-7, I thought,
right,
this could be trouble here. But then, as we get into the magical switch of the quarterback to a true freshman. I mean, you got one true freshman for Georgia who had started all year, and we couldn't say better things about, and deservedly so, because Jake Fromm had been playing well, to another freshman who has not taken a meaningful snap all year. And Nick Saban basically said, here you go, son. You came a long way from Hawaii. Go out and get us back in this ball game.
And that is what everybody is talking about. Brought to you by ADT. Considering home security, consider this. For 140 years, ADT has stopped more crime than any other home security company. Visit ADT to learn more, ADT.com. Look, the move to Tua Tagovailoa to start the second half would have been the thing that people would have crucified Nick Saban for had it not worked. But it worked out in spades. And the for lack of a better term, you know, you can say the onions, the intestinal fortitude to make that change. And yes, Nick Saban has as much bank cachet, you know, goodwill stored up as anybody you can possibly think about in college football. But to make that move and to see that kid play the way he did, that was remarkable. And let's be honest about something here. The kid that he replaced, Jalen Hurts, all he had done is go 25-2 as a starter, and had led this team to back-to-back national championship games. So for him to say, and he was clearly struggling in the first half. Hurts was 3 of 8, I think, for 21 yards.
Right.
But for him to say, you know what? I think in this moment, in this stage, with all the bright lights on you, with everything on the line, that I think you're the guy. And for him to respond to it the way he did, absolutely remarkable.
There had been whispers all year that Tua, and that's basically what everybody calls him, just because
Tagovailoa.
Yeah, Tagovailoa. Everybody, doesn't
go with Tua.
Try and pronounce the last name, so they call him Tua. There were, whispers, talk. It had been talked about that he was a better thrower than Jalen Hurts, and watch out for this kid. Next spring, there could be a quarterback competition, to which everybody is saying, wait a minute, Jalen Hurts is 25-2 as a starter, leads them to the national champion, or they lose it last year, and they're in the championship this year. This kid he's an excellent leader, even though younger players, an excellent leader on this team. But we all know the issue. What do you say if you're going to beat Alabama? What do you got to do? You got to make him throw the ball. Make him throw the ball. Make Jalen Hurts have to throw it, because you saw when he ran the ball, he can run pretty darn well.
Absolutely.
But if he has to throw the ball, that could be some issues. And you mentioned the numbers. He had 3 of 8, 21 yards, 62 as total QBR from 24 plays. Total yards for the offense while Hurts was in there was 94 yards, 3.9 yards per play of his 24 plays. So this offense wasn't doing anything. But to take a guy, I don't know what's more amazing about it, is to take a guy who's 25-2 and has found a way to be 25-2.
Absolutely.
Though, has not been a great passer, but has run this offense for those last couple of years and been the man on that offense, at least, getting everything squared away, even though they have obviously other studs on that team. I don't know what's more amazing is you pull him and you go to a guy who hasn't done anything this year, anything in a meaningful game, because they didn't need him to. He hasn't done anything. What that goes to show you is you don't come to a place like Alabama and wait. You come there and you're expected to be ready, because we're going to get into it. The list of freshmen,
oh my gosh,
true freshmen that were on the field at the end of this game sends that message that even if you're a 5-star, you're still an 18-year-old going into what seems like a man's world before you even go from the college into the pro, from high school to college. So now you are expected, and I think that to me is one of the more important things to find here, is when you come in there, you are expected to play, which means you get treated with that respect right away. You have to earn it, obviously, to get on the field, but that's the expectation. Listen, you're not coming here to just sit around.
There's no easing in.
If you're good enough to be on the field and you show that, we're going to put you on the field. And it doesn't matter if it's the second game of the season or the national championship game where we need you, you're going to go in the game.
Well, to that point, wasn't the left tackle eventually a starting freshman starting a freshman for that game because of injury?
Jonah Williams is their best offensive lineman at left tackle. Their best offensive lineman. I believe it was his ankle he hurt in the game. And in comes Alex Leatherwood, a guy I saw up close and personal at the Under Armour All-America game just last spring.
Unbelievable.
I mean, and the dude looked like he could walk onto a college campus at that point. He had that look. But that's the guy coming off the bench at the most important position, left tackle. And Williams had given up a couple of sacks in that game. And in comes a true freshman at left tackle to go along with a couple of wide receivers and a running back and a quarterback. So that, to me, there are really those two things, is to say, Jalen, you've done a lot for this team. But you know what? Pulling you.
Yeah,
I'm pulling you. And I'm going to a guy. And it really isn't a secret that Tua can throw the ball better. Now, he's a freshman. You saw him running all over the place with his pants are on fire at times out there like a freshman. But, man, he can throw a dart when he has to. And he did.
Well, absolutely. And we have a stat for you that we'll show you a little bit later, which will just blow your mind when you talk about how loaded Alabama is. I thought Kirk Herbstreit made a really great point along those lines about being ready to play. On SportsCenter last night when he and Fowler were on with Scott Van Pelt. There's a lot of these guys, the classes, they come in and they take classes in the winter. They're already there for the semester before they play. So they get this whole January experience going through, winter conditioning, spring ball. So by the time they come around and they actually begin their freshman year in September after their first training camp, they don't feel like freshmen. They've been on campus. They've been exposed to this entire process for so much longer than it used to be, and that was a big part of it. And as we said, there's tons of freshmen that did great things for Alabama in the national championship game, and we'll get to that in a minute. But the bottom line was the decision at the half to make that switch, because the Alabama offense was DOA in that game. They were not going anywhere. For him to do that, look, again, Nick Saban has more stuff in the bank put away than anybody else in college football.
Does.
But to say on this stage we're going to do it, that's about the gutsiest call you can make. And here's what the Alabama head coach said afterwards on why he made the switch.
We've had this in our mind that if we were struggling offensively, that we would give to an opportunity, even in the last game. And no disrespect to Jalen, but the real thought is we came into the game thinking that we were going to run the ball and be able to run quarterback runs, which we made a couple explosive plays on, but just without the absence of a passing game and being able to make explosive plays and be able to convert on third down. I just didn't feel like we could run the ball well enough, and I thought Tua would give us a better chance and a spark, which he certainly did.
Boy, did he.
Yeah, he absolutely did. And you heard him there, and I'd heard Herbie talking about this in the production meeting when you sit there, the whole crew, they talk to the head coach, the coordinators, and select players. And Herbie put it to Nick Saban. He said, is there a plan for Tua to come in the game? Is it by feel or is it predetermined? And made it sound like we have a package ready for this guy. And you just heard Nick say there, if we were struggling, even in the last game, we were struggling and we needed passing, we would make that move. So they were ready for him to come in the game. And then Herbie went another question. He said, well, what if he, goes 8 of 9 and 80 yards and a touchdown? Are you pulling him? And Nick Saban, they said that's when Nick Saban got to be Nick Saban.
Uncomfortable, I believe was the word.
He folded his arms, he leaned back, it got a little uncomfortable in there, and he said, I got a lot on my mind and not be worrying about hypotheticals right now. But the bottom line is they had a package ready for Tua to come in the game, even for the last game, because of the way he can throw the ball. And listen, Jalen Hurts did Jalen Hurts things with his legs. 6 carries, 54 yards. Now, most of them were on one run of 47 yards, but that's what you wait for with a guy like Jalen Hurts, is when he gets that big run like that. But when you have a half that goes missed field goal, punt, end to half, you're like, okay, Alabama shut out in the first half. You saw Jalen Hurts miss a wide-open Calvin Ridley in the end zone early on in that game, a wide-open defender even slipped down, but I think Ridley would have been open anyway, and just overthrew him in the end zone. And I have to say Calvin Ridley, because I'm not going to lie, didn't know that his brother
Riley Ridley
plays for Georgia, because Wims is a guy you throw to for Georgia, but he got injured in this one. So his brother, Calvin's brother, Riley Ridley, had the most catches for Georgia on the other end. How about that? How about the Ridley family in the national championship
Yeah, he
game?
had more catches than Calvin and had more yards than anybody. He had 6 catches for 82 yards.
Yeah,
Wims
impressive.
only had that one catch. You knew he was in trouble, by the way, when he went off into the locker room.
yeah.
You could see his just left arm dangling.
Absolutely.
They said he was going to come back, and I'm like, yeah, with what? With a Band-Aid?
Yeah, I didn't see that happen.
But it wasn't just the switch to Tonga Vailoa that Saban made, which was a great call. There was also the 4th and 4 play that led to the tying touchdown, when I don't think, in fact, I'm pretty sure that Tonga Vailoa wasn't looking for Calvin Ridley. It sure looked like he was looking for Harris, Najee Harris, who was in the back of the end zone, and Ridley just came out of nowhere coming the other way and made that catch. I mean, to go for it, look, it was 4 minutes left. I think they still had all 3 of their timeouts. But even if they kick the field goal, they're still down 4.
They still need a touchdown.
It was the right call to make, even if you don't get it.
So, you go for it. 4th one, you can still get a first down, by the way, at the 3-yard line. Yeah. But the throw goes to the end zone, and Calvin Ridley, you think, okay, the star gets a pass to him. But you're right. There was a whole lot of, I don't know if that ball was really meant for him. But you know what? So what? Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner had a great tweet and said, I don't think that was hey, it's happened to me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the guy, but he looks like he was going the other way, and Ridley just came out of nowhere and sniped that ball. Good for you. Good for Alabama.
Bottom line, it's a touchdown.
That is exactly right. Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch to Progressive can save an average of $620. $620. 620 clams, 620 simoleons. So you should do that. But then there was the game-winning play in overtime.
Well, first, even before that, I mean, I thought the game was done 6 seconds ago, and Eddie Pappanastis is lining up. He missed it first field goal.
Looks like a lot of my drives on the first tee when pressure's on the line.
A 36-yarder. This is anything. I mean, they set him up perfectly. They even brought Jalen Hurts back in with 6 seconds to go. The ball was on the right hash to take the snap and run it to the middle of the field. So basically, what happens is, where does your kicker like to kick the ball from? Okay, we have the ability to put it right where you want to kick it from. And that's exactly what they did. 36-yarder, perfect snap, perfect hold, and unfortunately, the kicker just absolutely snap hooked that thing.
Yeah, you felt for the kid.
Oh,
you never want to see a college kicker miss something like that. I mean, that was tough. And he had missed one earlier. He actually made it, and there was a penalty. They pushed him back 5 yards, and he missed the second one.
Right.
That was tough. But I tell you what, man, I just channeled my inner John Gruden.
There you go.
I tell you what, man, I like that kid. He's awesome. Perhaps the most impressive play Tua made in the entire game, and he made a ton of them, was the game-winning throw.
Yeah.
Against the defense that Georgia was giving it was a cover 2 look.
Yeah.
Which means there were 2 safeties on the field. Each had one half of the field. And the way he looked the safety off was impressive. It not only caught my eye and your eye, it also caught the eye of Joey Galloway, one of our great college football analysts who played in the NFL for a lot of years and was begging for quarterbacks to do for many, many of those seasons what this 18-year-old did in the national championship game.
You know how long I begged quarterbacks to read a cover 2 safety and realize he was not getting off the hash and throw the football because he can't get there? Right. I begged 26 quarterbacks I played with in the NFL, and they refused. Because when you see cover 2, supposedly the deep strike down the sideline is gone. It's taken away because the corner reroutes your receiver, and then the safety is on the hash, and he's wide, and he's going to make the play. So this young quarterback not only delivers the ball, but reads it. And when he's talking to Maria, he said, I saw the 2 deep safety. Now, generally, you see the 2 deep safety, you get off of the street.
Yep.
He not only saw it, and then had to come and say, look, I see it. That safety's not over. I'm going to throw the ball.
I mean, to do that in that moment at that age, I mean, okay, let's put it in some sort of perspective. At 18 years old, with everything on the line, this kid in the national championship game has the presence of mind to do. What was your greatest accomplishment as an 18-year-old?
Nowhere near that.
Mine was getting to a 10 o'clock class.
Yeah.
Not an 8 o'clock class, a 10 o'clock class on time.
Plus, even back that up, the play before that, he took a horrible sack.
Yep.
A sack so bad that Saban said after the game, Tua wouldn't have been able to make that throw if I had gotten to him after he took that sack.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a sack you can't take. But he's an 18-year-old throwing in the second half. And the expectation is, though, you have a job to do. You got to do your job. You don't take a sack in that that situation to where it's now 2nd and 26 to go to a cover 2 where that play's really not supposed to be there. Joey Galloway just broke it down perfectly. Is that the corner reroute you, and the safety in that case was Dominic Sanders. He gets looked to the hash, and Tua said he saw it and knew it, and he did a good job of looking. Didn't stare down his receiver, just looked and saw where he was going to go and went. It was very impressive, especially coming off that sack. As I said, there are times, boy, the interception he threw. It was a running play, and all the receivers were blocking.
Yeah.
All the receivers were blocking, and he threw a ball, and it was picked off. So he made freshmen, but you expect that. That's why you don't expect a freshman to have not played any meaningful plays during a season, not be inserted into the national championship game in the second half. So, I mean, we'll have all day, obviously, to talk about this all show, because we're going to look at it from the Georgia side as well. Because
absolutely.
Let's be honest, they had this game early on, but you look at just what went on to them in the game before that. We all thought Oklahoma, this game was over in the Rose Bowl, and Georgia comes back, and beats them in 2 overtimes to get to this game. But I tell you, the legend that does live on, you got to give it up for Rodrigo Blankenship. Kid knocks a fit. Talk about sacks in overtime. Fromm got sacked as well. They end up kicking a 51-yarder. If you kneel down 3 times in overtime, it's a 42-yard field goal.
Yep.
So you lost yards in overtime to make it a 51-yarder, and Blankenship absolutely knocked it through to give him that 3-point lead. And then think about the momentum switch. Blankenship knocks a 51-yard field goal in the overtime. They're up by 3. The first play for Alabama is a 16-yard sack. This kid's running around like a chicken with his head cut off and gets sacked, and you're like, okay, now you got a true freshman at 2nd 26 in overtime of the national championship game. Hey, no problem. Look at the safety, stare him down, let my guy go, and just dump it right over the top. To another freshman, by the way. Another freshman in Devonta Smith. Another true freshman in at the biggest time of the game.
Well, first of all, the legend of Rodrigo Blankenship continues to grow. Let's be clear about that. That was impressive. But the idea that Nick Saban has won his 6th national championship, 5 in the last 9 years in Alabama and 1 in the BCS era at LSU. The 6 tie the most during the Pole era, which goes back to the 1930s with someone Bama's familiar with, Bear Bryant.
Yeah.
That's the company we're in with Nick Saban. And he did it this way. If you think that Nick Saban's run at Alabama is in any way maybe peaking, get over yourself. Because they won that game with a freshman leading them in passing yards, a freshman leading them in rushing yards, and thanks to that one catch for 41 yards, Devontae Smith, a freshman, leading them in receiving yards. You may be sick and tired of Alabama's dominance. You might want to just get used to it for a while because they're not going anywhere for a long time with the way he's got them reloaded. The guests we have for you today, coming up in a little bit, we'll talk to Greg McElroy, former Alabama quarterback, works for us on the SEC Network. I'm sure his mind was blown by what he saw from Tua in the second half. Junior, who, of course, couldn't be here this morning, whatever dude, will join us in the 7 o'clock hour to talk about what he saw. He was hanging out with Kendrick Lamar and everybody last night.
Jason Fitz were doing their Twitter thing, and then I know he was on the sideline for the game, so he was up close and personal.
Yep. Kirk Herbstreit will join us in the 8 o'clock hour. Joey Galloway will be with us as well. Keyshawn Johnson will join us. Keyshawn's former coach and now our former colleague John Gruden will be officially announced today as the Raiders head coach a little later on. And we'll have Louis Riddick, our front office insider, in studio with us in the 9 o'clock hour. So we have lots to get to, including a guy who knows a thing or two about what it takes to be a quarterback at Alabama and what it takes to win a national championship for Alabama. Golic and Wingo with you on a Tuesday morning after the national championship game in college football presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And I'll tell you what, Tua Tagovailoa certainly came out of the cage last night. No doubt about it. And SEC Network analyst Greg McElroy now joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. And, Greg, that's the perfect read because they made the switch to Tua Tagovailoa at the half, and, boy, that paid off. When you saw Tagovailoa take the field, meaning that Nick Saban, a guy you played for, has decided to make this switch to a freshman who is going to be 20 in March. He's actually 19, not 18. And that he was going to give him the keys to the kingdom on the biggest stage. What was the first thing that went through your mind?
This poor kid and his poor parents, right? It's like you throw him out there. I feel like it was almost, for any normal person, it would be just beyond all comprehension. Oh, here, by the way, hey, go ahead, go in there. Your first significant playing time. You have 30 minutes to bring us back from a 13-point deficit. Hey, do your best, man. Appreciate you. Like, what? That's an impossible ask, and yet for Tua to be able to deliver as calmly as he did and as accurately as he did throwing the ball late in the game, it was just incredible. I mean, it was a storybook ending to what was a roller coaster season for Alabama and one that's punctuated with yet another national championship.
You know, and before we even got to that, Greg, we had that first half where, you know, we've read the numbers of what the offense had done for Alabama. I believe 94 yards. Hurts was 3 of 8 for 21 yards. And even though while it's not a juggernaut offense, to be shut out, what was your thought process there? Certainly you have to give the Georgia defense much credit for that, but I was still surprised that this offense was shut out.
You know, I think, Mike, looking at this offense and looking at Jalen, it's easy to pin the blame entirely on him given the way things worked out in the second half. But it was bad performance by everybody. I mean, there was no separation by the wide receivers. The offensive line was a little leaky. They couldn't get a whole lot going on the ground. So you can sit there and say, oh, well, it was just the quarterback. I think the players around Tua in the second half played significantly better than they did around Jalen in the first. So I really don't want everyone to walk away from this game feeling as though Jalen was the sole reason why the offense was ineffective, because it wasn't the truth. I mean, they couldn't get out of their own way when it comes to what they were trying to do in the first half. But I do think that Brian Dable, the play caller and offensive coordinator, he was a little limited because Jalen is not seeing the field real great right now, and they knew they had to make a change because coming back from a 2-score deficit the way they had it, it was not looking good unless you could throw the ball down the field, and that's not something Jalen Hurts is real comfortable doing at this point in his career.
Greg McElroy with us, of course, played at Alabama, knows the pressure that goes with that position. Okay, knowing the stage that he was on and knowing that he had never played any significant time without a double-digit lead, Greg, in a game, Tagovailoa. What was the most impressive thing you saw about his performance in leading Alabama back and outscoring in the second half Georgia 26-7?
Well, anybody that's been around the program has seen Tua and has been kind of blown away. And I've watched him on multiple different occasions dating back to last spring, and I thought to myself, this kid is really special. Now, I'm not sure he knows what's going on all the time, and I think that was evidenced by the sack in overtime and the interception that he threw as he was rolling to his left trying to throw it away. It was a pick. I mean, he's going to have some mistakes, but if you just can live with those, then the plays that he will make for you will flat out blow you away. So I think this kid is going to be an absolute star. And I've already said it, I was talking to a lot of people last night as we got back to the hotel, of course, burning the midnight oil, as we tend to do with these championship game performances. And I'm willing to go on record. I really believe this. I think he's going to win a Heisman Trophy at some point. I really think he has that level of upside. And knowing that Alabama and the young nucleus that they have around him, at one point last night, there were 6 freshmen on the field with under 2 minutes to play in a game in which they're playing for the national championship, the most important drive of the season. They had a true freshman at left tackle, running back, quarterback, 3 at wide receiver. Truly incredible. And I think that this young nucleus is really going to grow together, and it's going to be to a show moving forward. I mean, you just can't put him back on the bench after a performance like that. I kind of liken it to when Cardale Jones got the first nod in the 2015 season over J.T. Barrett because of how well he played down the stretch. That's going to be a similar case, I would assume, to what we're going to see at Alabama. And that young group and that young core is going to be very good for quite some time.
Yeah, some of those fresh you mentioned, Tua, Devonta Smith, who caught the touchdown, Najee Harris, the running back, Henry Ruggs, the third, one of the wide receivers, Alex Leatherwood, the tackle that you're talking about who filled in for Jonah Williams, who got hurt in that game. So talk about that for a minute, Greg. Take us inside there. When you, as a guy who played in that system and with Nick, go there, what does Nick put on the freshmen for expectations? Because some just go there and, you're going to sit and you're not going to do anything and you're not expected to do a lot. It certainly seems different there. So how does that come from Nick?
Yeah, well, I mean, it really comes from the fact that he recruits at a high level to begin with. So when the guys get on campus, and most of which are going to enroll early, several of which have NFL aspirations, they want to start that clock, Mike. They want to get things going, and when they get to that 3-year period, they're gone. And you're going to see a mass exodus again this year from some of the third-year juniors that will be declaring. And I'm not sure we have a final list, but if it was any less than 7 or 8, I'd be surprised. It's just guys come in not expecting to redshirt. Guys come in expecting to play, and Nick Saban plays them. He doesn't redshirt hardly anybody. On that team last night, there were 18 true freshmen that contributed at some point over the course of the season. There were three fifth-year seniors on the entire team, which is pretty amazing, one of which actually proposed, Bradley Bozeman.
Yeah, we saw that.
Congratulations. Congratulations to him. He's an old man relative to the rest of his teammates because he is one of the 3 fifth-year seniors. But it's amazing how much they put on the freshmen nowadays. But freshmen aren't the same anymore, man. Mike, I remember when I was playing, it's like, man, if a true freshman was out there, something was either wrong, you had injuries, or you were extremely thin. Freshmen don't have those expectations anymore. They have expectations of coming in, high school football and college football. The offenses that you see at the high school level, they're awfully similar to the ones that are being run at the college level. So I don't think the gap and the leap is as wide as it once was. But still, to see them perform with such poise on such a big setting is remarkable. And I think Nick Saban would even tell you, yeah, he has high hopes for those guys and their future, and he believes that they have a ton of talent. But you don't really know what you're going to get until you roll the ball out there. Hey, go have a day, young fella. I guess when the red light goes on and the bright lights are on, and obviously you have a crazy setting in a national championship environment, it's tough to expect anything else from these guys to go out and try to put their best foot forward. But man, even their parents probably wouldn't have expected such an incredible outcome.
Well, it was absolutely remarkable. Greg McElroy's with us, SEC network analyst, and obviously played college football at Nick Saban. at Alabama. And we've talked a lot here about Tua and the way he was able to respond. But, Greg, I don't think Tua plays that well if Jalen Hurts doesn't respond the way he did to being benched. It was remarkable. It was an incredible show of handling, obviously, what would have been a major disappointment for him in the exact right way. When Tua took the field for the first time, who was there right next to him getting him ready? It was Hurts. Every time that he was on the sidelines, who was there talking to him? It was Jalen Hurts, who a lot of people concede is the alpha male in that locker room that led that team to 2 straight national championships. And for him to handle being benched the way he did, I think allowed Tua on many levels to play the way he did.
I think it's difficult to come to any other conclusion. I'm 100% with you. And I thought Jalen in his post-game visits with both Tom Rinaldi and with Marty Smith just handled it masterfully. I mean, how else can you tell a kid and rip a kid's heart out knowing that he's chased this national championship dream for the last 12 months, and at halftime you say, hey, your night's done, barring something completely unforeseen? I mean, I thought he handled it about as well as he possibly could. And I feel terrible for that young man. I do. And I feel especially bad for the ignorance that's being shown by a lot of people that are just placing the blame solely on him, because it's hard to play quarterback by yourself. I mean, he certainly can carry and shoulder some of the blame, and he'll be the first one to tell you that. But I really thought the grace and the leadership that he displayed in the final 30 minutes of that football game was just truly unique. And you just don't see it all that often. I mean, this has always been a first-class young man. It's a very disappointing outcome, and it's a disappointing and a bitter end to what could be his Alabama career if, in fact, he decides to transfer. Of course, we don't know that. We might not for quite some time, but you feel terrible for him. But like you said, I mean, his willingness to cheer on Tua, talk to Tua, try to rally around Tua and really be a part and enjoy the post game as much as anybody it shows his character, and it shows what was truly important to him, and that was what was in the best interest of the team, not for him, not for his stats, not for his reputation, not for his ego. It was truly about the team for Jalen. It always was, and it was never on display more than last night.
Last one quickly, Greg, and while we know Nick Saban will enjoy it for probably last night and then start complaining today about how behind he is behind all the other teams and preparing for next year, how does Nick run this? Does Nick have open competitions? Will Nick make this an open competition if Jalen wants to stay? And we have no idea what he's going to do, but if he's going to say, will he say open competition, or is he I'm naming a starter guy and the other guy has to beat him out?
Oh, no, it's open competition. If you remember back to every time that they've had a quarterback, I guess you could call controversy or competition in the off season, outside of when I was a starter, because there just weren't as many options back then. It was early in Saban's takeover. But when A.J. McCarron took over in 2011, him and Phillip Sims rotated the first couple games. If you look at Blake Sims, he played a majority of the snaps in 14 because he beat Jay Coker on the field. And then Jay Coker in 2015 rotated all the way into the fourth game of the season with Cooper Bateman. Of course, you remember Blake Barnett started the first game last year, not Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts came in. He became the quarterback after rotating a few series there. So I think that he will absolutely let this thing play out. In a perfect world, of course, Nick Saban knows that having both of those quarterbacks on his roster could be beneficial. Now, the likelihood of having both next year is extremely small. I think Tua made a pretty big statement last night, and he's only going to get better. That's what's so unique about this young man. So I think it's his job, and it will likely be his job in the fall. Just hope that if Jalen does decide to stick it out or switch positions, whatever he decides to do, you know it's going to be in the best interest of his future. And I would think that Nick Saban would honor that, but in a perfect world, I know he'd love to have them both back, given that Jalen really has been pretty remarkably consistent over the course of his career. And having a guy that can do some different things and can run the football is a real positive.
Right. It certainly is. Everybody would like to have that problem, basically, is what we're saying. Greg, Greg, we appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much. Unbelievable game for Tua. Unbelievable comeback for Alabama. Golic and Wingo with you on this Tuesday morning after the national championship game, and obviously elation in Alabama, obvious heartbreak for UGA fans, Georgia, the Bulldogs, and everything else. When it looked for the longest time that Kirby Smart would be the one to finally break that jinx of all the former Nick Saban assistants going up against him. Instead, he becomes the 12th straight victim. 12-0 Nick Saban is against former assistants. But I'll tell you what, Georgia, man, their future is pretty bright too. We talk a lot about what Alabama has done, but Georgia looks like they're in it for the long haul here with the way Kirby has turned that program around.
Yeah, definitely. You know, you got, again, the true freshman Jake Fromm now. He completed 50% of his passes, a couple of interceptions, was sacked 4 times. You're going up against the best defense that he was going to face all year right there. And as a true freshman, I love what he has done. You have, Sony Michel and Nick Chubb. You know, Michelle almost got to 100 yards. He had 98. Chubb 18 for 39. For carries, they did run the ball 45 times, but you knew that's what they were going to do and try and get some passes over the top. They only averaged 3 yards per run as opposed to 102 yards per run last week against Oklahoma. So we kind of knew it was going to be a little different in that, and the passing game was going to have to be a bit of a difference for them. And when Wims went down, that definitely hurt him.
Yeah.
He was the size guy. He was that 6'4" guy that could create that mismatch that they were looking for. And interestingly enough, it was Calvin Ridley from Alabama's brother Riley Ridley who ended up being the leading receiver
for either team
in the game.
Yeah.
6 receptions more than anybody, 82 yards more than anybody in that game for Georgia. So, you know, they're set up well going into the next year and the years to come. We just had Greg McElroy on. He thought that Tua, he said, this guy's going to win a Heisman. Well, if he's going to win a Heisman, he may be battling a guy named Jake Fromm for that Heisman. And again, the reason Tua is at Alabama is Fromm was offered a scholarship there and didn't go to Alabama. So when that opened up, Tua got the offer and he went to Alabama. So Alabama thought highly enough of Fromm to want him as their quarterback as well. So you got a couple of true freshmen who obviously Fromm played the entire year.
He played great last night.
You got to see a lot of him. Tua, you just got to see just the beginning of his tenure at Alabama. So a couple of guys really to keep an eye on.
Yeah, look, a freshman led a team to a national championship, just like everybody thought it might be, except it was for the other team.
Freshman,
Tua.
yeah.
And you mentioned Tua only got the offer from Alabama after they lost the commitment from Fromm. Well, it goes beyond that. Devonta Smith had the game-winning touchdown, was committed to Georgia for some time while in high school.
Attention shoppers, clean up on aisle 14. Clean up on aisle 14. Someone dropped a jar of pickles. Pickles. Kosher pickles.
Beatboxing at a big box store. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
A red minivan has the lights on in the parking lot.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Geico.